bandwidth, and sometimes I'll have shitty bandwidth.
That happens to everybody, but I think that I forget what my printer total was there. Forget it.
All right, let's get started. We've lost 11 minutes. There we go. That's fine now. Okay, so my internet was acting up. I had to lower the bit rate. It's fine now. I'd rather have a slightly lower quality stream and have it be smooth and not us jerking around like Max Headroom on crack. Okay, it's fine now.
Cool.
All right, let's start this off. Welcome everybody to Attack on Auraxis. Let me change this. This is I think the third episode, and I'm here with sPWNish, Mustarde, and Torokokill, but I'm gonna let them introduce themselves. Just give a slight introduction to yourself, what outfit you're in, and I guess we all know you guys are all infiltrators, so you don't have to say your primary role, but just give a kind of like what got you into PlanetSide 2, which is a standard question of Attack on Auraxis, and what outfit you're in. We'll start with sPWNish. We'll go left to right and then right to left.
Okay, well, I had met Zoid starting with Battlefield 3, and I just kind of been hopping around game to game with him since then. He had mentioned PlanetSide 2. I was on board pretty much right from the beginning, and I've been playing ever since. That was about 9 months ago that I started PlanetSide 2. Obviously, I am playing for NUC Gaming, and I am the infiltrator for Delta Squad.
All right, Mustarde?
So I found PlanetSide 2 from Steam about 3 days after it came out, and they had all the ads on. I'd never heard of it before, never heard of PlanetSide 1, and I didn't really play many first-person shooter games, but I was kind of looking for something new, and so I started playing, and I was totally free to play for about 2 months. And during that time, I was in a newbie outfit, and they kept telling me, you've got to stick with a certain class. It's hard to play everything at once, so just specialize. And so I looked at all the classes, tried them out, and ended up really liking Infiltrator because I could cloak and use positioning to get kills because I wasn't the best shot. And then after grinding away at it for 12 months or so, I finally got the hang of things.
Right on, man. Right on. All right, Toro?
Well, started PlanetSide 2 right at release. I'm primarily a first-person shooter gamer. I've been bouncing around from, I think Global Agenda was my last big dig, so I usually snipe in first-person shooter games, so I just instantly attracted to the Infiltrator class, and rest is history, I guess.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. I know Mustarde mentioned why he went Infiltrator, but I didn't hear from you guys. Like, why did you go Infiltrator out of all the classes in PlanetSide 2? It's essentially like probably one of the highest skill ceiling infantry classes in the game, because you are running around with less hit points. You are more vulnerable to when you get spotted. So why choose Infiltrator over the other classes, primarily at least? Let's start with Toro.
I like sniping. That's all there is to it, really. I feel most comfortable when I have the scope on my screen, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, since Mustarde mentioned it, we'll skip him and go straight to sPWNish. Why Infiltrator?
I actually was approached by the Delta Squad leader asking me if I would like to try Infiltrator. I actually had no previous desire to play Infiltrator. I had nothing started in Infiltrator. I strictly played, medic, heavy, max, NG type thing. Just switching back and forth between what was needed with the squad. And when I was approached, I said I would give it a try, and here I am playing Infiltrator. That's about it.
All right, that's good enough. All right, well, let's start off with the questions. The patch coming on Tuesday aims to change the way PlanetSide 2 is played at very fundamental levels. You have all kinds of changes all across the board. There's undocumented ESF nose gun changes, AV vehicle weapon changes, hip fire COF LMG changes, and of course the sniper rifle one-hit kill range changes and more. And I know they've gone back and forth on that. Now, how do we break it down to what matters for infiltrators? Between all the changes that are going on, I didn't even mention all of them. How do we break it down to what matters for infiltrators? We'll start with Torokokill.
Well, really, I like to break down infiltrating into like the two main roles, where you either snipe or you're a cloaker with an SMG. So for the sniping, hitbox changes and obviously the one-hit kill ranges are very important. As for the cloaking side, it's more the hip fire changes. Specifically with the LMGs, actually. So, like, I believe that cloakers, SMG cloakers, will have more of a chance against heavies running at resist nanowave.
Okay, that's good. Well, we'll lead into that after this, but I'll give everybody a chance to answer the first part. So how do you break it down to what matters? Let's go with Mustarde.
Me next? Okay, so I think the main thing is, well, there's two main things. One is that for the close range bolt actions, which are the SAR-42, the SASR, and the Ghost for the VS, they've taken out the scope sway. And that was a huge crippling factor for those rifles because when you're trying to function at close range, having your scope wobble while everyone else has a steady aim can really affect you. And at those ranges, you have to get a headshot or else you're pretty much dead. And then also the semi-auto sniper rifles that are close range. I know the KSR-35, it's the Phantom, I forget the NC version. I think it's the Stalker or something, I forget. But those also won't have sway, which might make them actually useful. And then in addition, as Toro mentioned, the one-hit kill range is actually being added. We used to not have a limit to how the distance that you could get a one-hit kill. So some people see that as a nerf. I didn't think it was necessary either. But the flip side of that is that nanoweave is no longer in the picture. So although 300 meters for the Rams 50 is pretty much infantry render range,
right?
And that's pretty good. But before, you could, as long as you could see someone, you could shoot them in the head and get a kill if they didn't have nanoweave. So there's a lot of changes. I'd say that on the net, it's a big buff for sniping.
Right, because now it's been kind of normalized in a sense.
Right. And even for like the Ghost or the SAR-42, the close range bolt actions at 200 meters, they're more reliable now. And the real big thing is that you can fit suppressors again and feel effective because nanoweave was huge for suppressors. You put a suppressor on my SR7, and if you have nanoweave 5, you couldn't get a headshot at beyond 40 meters, which is kind of ridiculous.
Is that because of the bullet drop, or what was that?
It hits the fallout damage much faster with a suppressor.
Right.
So suppressors were almost useless. I stopped using it entirely once enough people fit nanoweave.
Okay, let's go on Spanish. How do you break this down to what matters for infiltrators?
Well, I try to look at things strictly competition oriented. So I'm not looking as much into the sniper rifles. Sure, they have their place in pubbing. I love it. And I'd love to see it come into play in competition. I just have yet to see that happen.
Yeah, that's actually one of the questions we'll get to. But go ahead.
So my main thought is I'm the sneaky type of infiltrator where I like to run around with SMG, cloak, uncloak, completely come up behind somebody and surprise them, and that's about it. So I'm looking at the hip fire. I'm looking at the nanoweave changes. When I go up behind a heavy, I'm not as susceptible to their hip fire damage. I'm not susceptible to their reaction speed. So either they have to one, hip fire and hope that they hit their shots, or two, aim down their sights and slow their movement speed, which makes it an easier kill for me because I can just shoot straight and get the kill. As for the nanoweave changes, it actually kind of cripples the SMG infiltrator because it's very tough outside of like maybe a 10-meter range to hit those headshots on a consistent basis. You're maybe opening with the headshot and then dropping down to the body. You're looking at a 10-shot minimum from most ranges. Right. So unless you're right up against the nanoweave, it's not a big difference. That's basically how I feel about all that. The snipers, I love to have fun with them. I love to pub them. So I'm looking forward to those changes as well, obviously, just not for competition.
Right. So that actually brings up an interesting point. It's most of these changes are going to affect us. 90% of the time we're on live. We're playing with puppies, or I shouldn't say puppies. Whatever. We're playing with our outfits. We're playing with everybody else. So how do you differentiate these changes? Because you guys pointed out, there's two aspects to Infiltrator, right? There's the sniper, there's the cloaker, and then you have the sniping change, one-hit kill changes, which are obviously going to affect sniper rifles. And like Mustarde said, I mean, you're pretty much free to shoot from anywhere because I think 400 meters is the infantry render, I think. So 300 meters, you're safe pretty much from anywhere shooting into a tower. And then now, as Spanish pointed out, you have the hip fire LMG changes, which adds a little more to your life expectancy as an infiltrator. How do you break this down? And what do you do to maximize your effectiveness as an infiltrator? I mean, burying these changes. I mean, there's a lot of things coming, especially considering the fact that we haven't had the Infiltrator revamp. What are you guys most looking forward to? Like, is your style of play going to change? I mean, are you guys going to be a little more comfortable in your roles as an Infiltrator, or is it going to be, you know, tougher? I don't think that's the case, but, you know, I've got to ask it. Let's start with sPWNish.
The only thing I see being tougher is actually deciding when you are going to strike. You could easily pick up more kills now, much more easily than before. So you're going to start thinking in a mindset that you're a fragging class, and you're really not. You're a flanking class. You're just looking to pick up the garbage kill, slow down a push, whatever it may be. So, I mean, it might make you think, okay, there are 4 guys looking at me. I could drop 2 of them. Let's go. But that's really not the way you're supposed to play an Infiltrator. You're supposed to wait till they all have their backs turned and flank them. So I think that it's going to... I'd like to not have it change my gameplay. I think sometimes it will affect my decision-making with, okay, I know I can get this kill, I'm going to try for it, and then I might get wiped out.
Right. You mentioned with SMGs that you typically don't go for headshots unless you're under 10 meters. And I know with the numbers that I've looked at, most SMG guys have a high accuracy but very low headshot ratio. Do you think that dynamic will change, considering you get the full damage on the headshots for at least SMG infiltrators?
No, just because you have to aim for the majority of the time you're going to be hip firing unless you're further ranged away. The hip fire is so good with it, there's no reason not to. Your movement speed is so much higher. That's your defensive quality, is that you're able to move around. You don't have, you know, higher health. You don't have, you know, you might not even be running nano weave. Like, I prefer to run grenade bandolier and either rock 4 EMP grenades or 4 frag grenades. But I just think that it will make I don't know, just that.
All right, so to Mustarde, like how's your play going to change? You know, for better or worse?
Well, are you talking about live server or?
Yeah, we're specifically live server.
In the live server, it may not change my behavior too much, but it's going to greatly increase my efficiency. And I might actually go back to using the suppressor more once again, because I can flank people and know that if I hit them in the head, it'll actually kill them. Whereas before, it's kind of, you know, depending on the range you're at, it was becoming 30 to 40% of your shots weren't bringing targets down, and all it was doing was drawing attention to you. But as far as how it changes my own personal gameplay, you may have looked at my stats. I prefer to snipe. I snipe more than I use the SMG.
Right.
So I think it won't change what I do too much. It just changes how effective I am. But also, when it comes to the SMGs, you know, as far as aiming for the head versus for the body, I have to agree with sPWNish that, you know, you're hip firing, you're kind of trying to use your mobility and your accuracy at the body instead of just going for the headshots. So I don't know, you know, we'll see, because I think a lot of people will use nanoweave less, and so it won't matter as much that you could aim for the head. If people still use nanoweave, then sure, it would help you to aim for the head and skip that resistance. But I see a lot of players are probably going to roll flak armor, so you're better off just hitting the body shot where you're more accurate, unless you want to get an advanced laser sight or something and kind of tweak your build for that. I personally, I know sPWNish and I are TR, and of the SMGs we have to use, I prefer the Armistice, and I feel like you have to have extended magazines on that. So, you know, I go for the body.
Okay, and plus you got, what, 250 less hit points, so it's 2 bullets less that you have to actually hit people with. 2 or 3 bullets less, depending on range.
Yeah, depending on range and, you know, if they have nanoweave resistance or not.
Right, exactly. So let's go to Toro. How's your play in the live server going to change after this patch? How do you think it'll change?
Sniping wise, probably not that much. I, you know, pretty much whore the parallax almost exclusively. So really, like, I'm going to be able to kill more people, I guess, is the gist of it. With the ability to one-shot kill anyone up to 300 meters.
Yeah.
For the cloaking side, I might actually be switching to like the Artemis or the the automatic scout rifle. It's a very accurate weapon, and I think you can just really lay into people's heads with that, especially with the nanoweave changes. I think it's going to be a very powerful weapon.
Okay, so we talked about live. Let's talk about competition. We have the community clash coming up sometime next year. You know, sometime in January, February. and but we have, I know we all participate in scrimmages now and then, whether it's inner outfit or outside the outfit. How are these changes going to affect competition? Do you think sniper rifles will have I know we kind of all agree for for good or bad that snipers really don't have a place in competition because of the way the maps are designed, but with Community Clash being on essentially a live map, you might be able to hit those same angles that you get. I know I've seen Mustarde in towers and those little, I don't know what you want to call it, those bastard up there and just sniping people, and nobody ever looks at you guys. But how do you think it'll change? Let's talk about Community Clash specifically, because we're all probably getting involved in that before we're involved in the Nexus. How do you think the role of the Infiltrator will change in Community Clash? Specifically, you can either address sniper rifles or SMGs, either or. Let's go to Toro.
It'd be interesting to see how, or if snipers become viable in Community Clash. I think they're an excellent area denial class, and I think they're really good at cutting off reinforcing units or infantry from Asunder or other locations. Also, I think that snipers are an effective counter to underbarrel spam, which will be interesting to see if that actually has an impact past a couple of scrimmages. So, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I'm kind of hard to call, I guess, how the Infiltrator role is going to change.
Right.
Definitely it's going to adapt a lot as the meta shifts with the new Community Clash rules.
Right. Now, typically, I know a lot of, especially if you watch the Any versus Future Crew match, a lot of the underbarrels are being fired from cover. Now, so basically, you're gonna have to use the short range sniper rifles. Do you think the skill ceiling for that is a little higher than the long range, or is it vice versa?
I think it's about the same. Really, the difference between the rifles is how the distance you shoot at. Obviously, you're not going to get a lot of kills with the Ghost at 200 meters, but at the same time, you can take a parallax, a 12x parallax, into 50-meter ranges and still be kind of effective at it. So it's going to be
a 12x at 50. So when you scope in, it's like their heads is the size of your monitor, basically, right?
Yeah, you do a lot of drag shots at that range, but it's a discussion for another time.
All right. So Mustarde, how do you think the role of the Infiltrator will change in competition like the Community Clash?
Well, are we kind of referring to the patch or
the
just
patch
in general?
Yeah, well, after the patch and then going into Community Clash. So
Okay.
we're discussing the future.
Yeah, so I think with regards to the patch and competitive play, I don't think it's going to change what an Infiltrator does very greatly. Some of the weapons are a little more viable, but you don't have, in competition, especially if we're talking about sniping, I think you only need like one, maybe two snipers on a full 48-man team.
Right.
So at the ranges that you're engaging in, nanoweave is less of a factor, and it's more a matter of if people are outdoors or not, giving you an angle to shoot at them. So I don't think any of the changes we're talking about in the patch are going to impact competitive play greatly when it comes to sniping. If anything, like sPWNish referred to when he first answered the question regarding using the SMG and having LMGs be less effective at hipfire, that will probably have a bigger impact on what we see in a Community Clash if the Infiltrator is running an SMG.
Okay. Fair enough. sPWNish?
I might be skipping ahead of the topics a little bit here, but I have heard from several different people that the new amp stations that are currently live on test server will be making a showing in the Community Clash. I'm not sure if that's true, but I personally love those new amp stations.
They're pretty amazing.
It completely makes it an even fight. You don't have to worry about
hold on, before you go on, Mustarde and Toro, have you guys had a chance to fight on the new amp station? To fight on Freya and Esamir? On PTS?
Yeah, I looked around a little, but I haven't really gotten to know it very intimately.
It's the best base design, but let's go on with sPWNish.
I really like that they have a forward spawn,
Yeah.
meaning that if I capture A point, I have a spawn right next to A point. If Vanu holds B and C, they have spawns at B and C. I have A, I have a spawn at A. That means that as long as you hold the point at the base, you can spawn there. You can start getting yourself into the fight. For live server, I don't like it as much. I think it'll still be fun. I just think it's going to be a huge farm. It's going to be a 24/7 fight type of thing. But in terms of competition, I think it'll be a lot of fun just fighting at that base. Let's say in 24 versus 24. So I'm going to be speaking specifically about the Infiltrator role on that base because I have tried to play it there. And the one issue that I found is it was hard to keep radar dart coverage up for everything everywhere. So you definitely need more than one Infiltrator for multiple different points there. But there were some very good spots to snipe from, and I don't really like saying that because I really don't think that it's a viable option. You get pushed, you're dead. That's pretty much how I look at it as a sniper. But as an SMG, there are also lots of options that are going to be pushing around. You're going to be able to get flanks in. You're going to be able to go up on the wall. You're going to be able to wait for people to run by you, drop down behind them, call pushes. It's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to see teams, I think, with the better infiltrators will have a lot better of a map knowledge as to what's coming towards them. They're going to be able to shift accordingly, and I think that's going to be important in competition on that base.
Okay, let's talk about. I want to touch on something you said. How does the role of the infiltrator change from live server to competition? Like I know Mustarde and Toro love to snipe, but do you guys see your role changing? I mean, obviously, when I think competition first came out, people would look at infiltrator and be like, okay, they're just basically for the darts. But I honestly feel that the role of the infiltrator is constantly evolving, especially considering we haven't seen the revamp yet. So how does your role actually change from live server to competition? We'll start with Spanish.
Well, live servers, you could obviously run into fights 48+, so you could be 100 versus 100, whatever it may be. You're going to have a very, very hard time making any sort of an impact with your fragging role. So in that sort of a fight, your job is strictly stay alive and keep radar darts up. Honestly, I don't think infiltrators are even that powerful for that sort of a fight. I'd rather be on something like a medic where I'm going to be able to at least revive teammates. We're going to be able to kind of jump around, keep our team alive on the point, whatever it may be. Competition-wise, you have a set number of people. You know that there are 48 max people that could be at this point. You know what's coming at you. You're able to kind of gauge the situation much more better, for lack of a better word. And you'll actually be able to get in some flanks there. You'll be able to get some kills. Just play ways that people aren't expecting. And that the less people that are there, the easier it is for you to sneak around, is essentially what I'm trying to get at.
Okay.
Here. That's where I stand on the competition.
All right. Infiltrator. Let's get into Mustarde's head here a little. When the match is about to start, what's going through your mind? Like, what's your plan of action as an infiltrator?
Well, it all depends on the map I'm at.
Let's assume, for this case, the context. Let's say Howling Pass, because that's basically it's going to be Mao in the north and then Rashnu in the south, and Howling Pass will be neutral for Community Clash. We're assuming we're playing a match, right? Mm-hmm. So, but you meet at Howling Pass. So let's say Howling Pass is the base. What's your plan of action as an infiltrator?
I think it's a wide open base, so it's good for using a sniper rifle. And specifically for that base, if you can get into the towers. You have good overwatch on Bravo and Charlie Point.
Yeah.
Alternatively, if the enemy's kind of keeping you at bay, they changed the map recently, so now there's kind of a cliff above the spawn room. I forget which direction. I think it goes to the west. There's like a western cliff. Yeah. It's a little high up, so it's kind of far away, but you can actually pretty much clear out anyone standing on top of the towers or over Alpha Point. You can also clear out anyone pulling a vehicle or an aircraft from there, just from that one cliff. So on a big map like that, I think you have the option to use a sniper rifle. You'll have plenty of ways that you can kill people. And you also have good visualization of the enemy movement. You can relay that to your squad members and let them know where you think the enemy is weak, so that they can maybe move some guys in and disable a generator or go for a point and push it. Mm-hmm. So I would almost, at Howling Pass, you're a great overwatch tool, as well as kind of denying different defensive locations. But to kind of go back to your initial question about live server versus competition, I think there's a huge difference, at least for how I play.
Right.
Because in a live server, I'm depending on all those people not talking to each other and not knowing really where I'm at and not really looking for me. And so I'll get into a base with a suppressor or just without a suppressor, depending on the size of the base, and find a little hidey hole or find a nice place I can snipe people from. and I'll go on like 50 kill streaks and decimate entire squads before they realize where I'm at. In a competitive environment, they're all in TeamSpeak, they're all looking, they're very aware of their environment, and if you get one kill, they're going to rely on comms. Oh, Mustarde killed me from, this area, and you'll have 2 people come clean me up right away. So in a competitive environment, you're looking for where is the stalemate, or where is the enemy kind of clustered up trying to push, and how do I get to a flanking position, either with a sniper rifle, an SMG, a scout rifle. You really have to be more flexible. You can never stay in the same place, and you're really just looking for the choke point and how you can get behind that choke point and distract the enemy so that your guys can push. And the other thing, in live server, recon darts are there just to get the recon XP and to keep yourself alive.
Yeah.
They don't help your team that much. They're helpful, but in a competitive environment, recon darts are probably the most important thing that I think a single player brings to the fight, because everyone else now knows what's going on. They know if the enemy's pushing, and when you come up against these creative teams, they're not just going to zerg at the point. They may go in a crazy, pattern. They may, you don't know where they're going to go, and they have different opening strategies for each base. So those recon darts are probably the most valuable thing you can bring to a competitive match, and it's your job to keep those darts up at all times.
Right.
So live to competitive, I think it's a huge difference.
Now, if you had a choice between being offensive with your guns, or being a little more defensive and actually spamming more darts, what would you do?
Darts, hands down. The few scrimmages that I've been in with the guys in BWC, if my darts go down for like 10 seconds, someone on comms is going to be like, darts, I need darts.
Yeah.
Instantly, right away. So it's the most important thing I do for my team. It helps if I'm getting, 20 kills or something, but if I let the darts go down, then I get in trouble.
Right, because then situational awareness goes down the toilet. All right, Toro, how does your role change from live to competition?
Well, typically on live, I'm fairly aggressive, pushing forward, getting behind enemy lines, things like that, farming kills primarily.
Right.
It just doesn't happen in a competition setting. Like Mustarde was saying, you get 1 or 2 kills, and the entire enemy team knows exactly where you are. With that I&I Elite scrim that Future Crew had a couple of weeks back, I was able to get in a couple of flanks against their defense line on their that were holding back our push, and then after that, I'd kill 1 guy, and then 6 people would turn around and kill me. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So. Typically, in a competition setting, I'm playing closer to the team, closer to the medics, closer to the ammo for more darts, because darts really are the biggest thing that an infiltrator brings to a competitive setting right now. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, let's theorycraft a little bit. I know the revamp for infiltrators coming. What would you guys like to see? And I'm going to stick to competition here because that's kind of what the show's about. What would you like to see from the infiltrator revamp that would help you be a little more effective in a competitive environment? And start with Toro.
I'd like to see possible ways of more disruption from the infiltrator. I think they're kind of pigeonholed into this reconnaissance role right now with darts and what have you. But I think there would be value in possibly expanding what an infiltrator can bring to a team play setting. So, for example, disrupting enemy comms or enemy radar or something along those lines. Like EMP grenades a start, but I'd like to see more along those lines.
No, I agree. I think I would like to see the EMP grenade, given the ability it had in PlanetSide 1 where it disables enemy vehicles. I think that'd be pretty cool. If you disable the vehicle and eject the passenger, something like that.
That might be a bit OP, but
no, but it's what it used to do, man. Because basically, it's how you hacked vehicles. You would EMP a tank, they would get pushed out of the vehicle, kill them, and then you hack the vehicle. So.
Oh my god! If that happened, I think the tears in this game would never end.
But they're the most delicious tears.
In the world would be crying.
But you would love those tears, man. It'd be like just the right amount of salt, man. All right, let's go on with the question again. What would you like to see as far as competition and the future of the infiltrator revamp, Toro?
I'd like to see I don't know. It's kind of a slippery slope because I think any buffs you make specifically to sniping in a competitive setting will just blow them out of the water on live servers. But possibly some way of sniping infiltrators to deny enemy revives or something along those lines. Firefall has a similar mechanic with, I can't even remember the name of the ability anymore, but you shoot the guy and he can't be revived anymore. And that is so powerful. And you compare it to like the Future Crew's reason why they don't run infiltrate or sniping infiltrators specifically is that you kill a guy, he gets revived at the end. That takes like half a second, and he's back up with his shields regenning almost immediately. A cloaker can kill the guy and then push in and deny the revive within reason.
Right.
And that's, yeah. So having snipers maybe like deny revives or something along those lines to really have more impact, and maybe hopefully make the fights a little less static than what they are now in competitive play.
Okay, you bring up a really good point, and I'm going to add this to Mustarde's question. Sniper rifle, you kill them, they get picked up, and whatever it takes, half a second. Now, how effective do you think you could be if that wasn't the case? Like, say if you could deny the revive, or it's like, say with a headshot, it'd have to be like something crazy, right? Like a headshot or something with maybe like one specific sniper rifle or something. Now, is that the kind of stuff you would like to see from the Infiltrator revamp, Mustarde, or what do you think?
I don't know. I think that would frustrate a lot of people, especially if that was on the live server, because, I'd have, a whole squad of guys who couldn't be revived dead on the field, being mad at me. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way, but it would be very frustrating, I think, to be on the receiving end of that. And I think, if you are selective in how you snipe and where you snipe from, I think you can do plenty of damage. Now, in competitive play, though, we're talking about like the infill update. Actually, what I'd like to see is more done to the bases so that infiltrators have a reason to infiltrate. I'd like to see, more objectives for, that hacking can be of use for. Even when I first started playing the game, I thought it was weird that anyone can spike a generator, for example. That seems like the sort of thing an infiltrator would be. It would be their job to hack the shield generators and vehicle generators. So even just something like that, I think, would give us more of a utility without really giving us an overpowered ability. And in competitive play, I said before that I think snipers have a limited role, just because of most enemies don't make themselves very easy targets, and revives are readily available. But I think if you made it a permanent, you couldn't be revived, that would be potentially game-breaking, at least. Maybe not game-breaking, but I think it could really be a frustrating and bad mechanic, a negative mechanic to play against. Especially if you take someone like myself or Toro, who we snipe quite a bit. If you've seen any footage, gameplay footage, we can function between 10 and 200 meters with the same weapon and bring down people as fast as we can shoot, all in the head. So if you gave us the ability to deny revives on all those people, we'd make an impact, but I think it'd be a little too strong for one individual in a team-based game. It
brings up that point Higby had said. He when they were, I think it was doing the AMA on Reddit, he was talking about that a lot of the balance for, I think he was speaking about NC specifically, he was saying that a lot of the balance, it wasn't so much for the average player, but to avoid the God mode that would happen if really good players got a hold of this certain weapon. And I think that's really an important point, not so much for competition, specifically for competition, but for live too, that if we give you and Toro a sniper rifle that can deny revives, that can do like really quick ADS, that's completely stable, whatever it is, in your hands it's going to be much more powerful than it would be in, like, say, my hands, where I've never sniped before. I maybe have like an hour with sniper rifles. So I think it's really interesting to note that you have to balance the game not just for the average player, but also so that top players don't get God mode in a sense. But what do you think about all this, sPWNish? What are your thoughts, man?
Well, firstly, I think that you have to have a skill ceiling on your weapons. I think it should be a higher skill ceiling. I think players that have more hours on the weapon should be able to do better things with the weapon than somebody that just picked it up.
Right.
I think that there are certain things that SOE has been doing that have kind of taken away from the higher skill tier players to kind of satisfy the lower skill tier players. I'm not going to get into that whole debate, but I would like to see something that is specifically for an Infiltrator ability. If you look at maybe something like the Battlefield series, the Recon class has had something like a Recon drone or something along those lines.
Yeah, that was actually just mentioned in chat.
Where you are able to kind of like fly around outside of your body. You can get some reconnaissance in. You might be able to shoot a little bit at people. I'm not necessarily saying like make it as overpowered as the Battlefield 4 ones. I don't know who has seen the YouTube videos of people just like crashing into people and never dying, but something where I can go outside my body, be an attacking presence on, you know, where I'm not. Like just fly somewhere, call push in, take out a medic or something, slow down their push some way. That's my change that I'd like to see to the Infiltrator class.
Okay, now we're gonna move on. There's been talk from SOE devs about adding more to the death screen. Initial discussion is panning the camera in the direction you were killed, and the second idea was, I think it was based off a real idea, to add an icon to the minimap for the location of your killer. What's the good, the bad, and the ugly regarding this idea? Let's start with sPWNish.
I like it, but I don't like it. I like it as a person dying, because I get to call out to my team exactly where somebody is. As an infiltrator trying to kill people, I don't like that whatsoever. I want to be able to kill people and make my escape. I don't want it to point in my direction. I don't want my icon to show up on a minimap. I mean, unless I'm shooting with a silencer, I might show up, whatever. But I don't want to give competitive players intel that they don't necessarily deserve. If they don't know that I'm there, they shouldn't know that I'm there. I mean, good players are going to make that call anyway that they got killed from such and such of a position, so it's not going to make a huge difference, but the times when you do make that kill and you're able to escape, it makes a big difference to an infiltrator's role.
Now, it depends how they implement it too, right? Like, if they just pan it to your position when you kill them and hold it there, you'll be better off, where if they keep panning it to follow you, right? Because then they say, well, now he's behind the box somewhere. So it really depends how they implement it. I think it's a fine line between useful and really kind of a crappy mechanic. So let's go with Mustarde. What do you think about that? The death screen changes.
Yeah, you know, I think anything that gives the enemy more intelligence on what you just did to them is bad. They already kind of have a directional indicator. The thing we're forgetting is how easy it is for a medic to pick you up after you get that information. So I kill someone, the medic revives them, and then now they know exactly where I'm at. It's completely wrong. I hope they don't go that road, and I know that they're trying to balance it out, but I just don't think it's worth the resources and the kind of the developmental effort to put something in the game that I don't think is really a problem to begin with. Even now, if I get sniped just once on the live server or in a competitive environment, whatever, I already know where it came from. You know, you have a directional indicator. You kind of know. You can even see the tracer sometimes hit you right in the head.
Right.
So you already know this information. Making it easier to use and more available is huge. I think it'd be a huge mistake on SOE's part.
Now, do you think it's one of those changes where they're trying to make life for the average player a little easier, and it kind of it kind of puts a dampening effect on actually really good players? Because I know you have like what 1,500 hours as an infiltrator, something like that. And so the level of your play is I mean, it's not average. You guys are obviously here for a reason. You three guys, the way you play the game is not average, right? So your experiences with the game is not based off the average experience. Your experience of the game is based off a really high skill ceiling, like sPWNish was saying. You run at a higher tempo, at a higher rhythm, and so what you're doing isn't the average experience for the player. So maybe this is like SOE's response to they have this kind of crusade, and I sort of agree with it, about removing those bullshit kills, right? Like, they removed the one-hit Zephyrs, the one-hit Dolphins, the Daltons, actually, the Dolphins. They're removing the rocket launcher one-hit kills. They're removing the indirect grenade launcher kills. They're removing a bunch of stuff that actually kills you with one hit. Now, do you think that they could potentially go overboard with this? I mean, as far as it'll affect you guys as snipers? Let's go to Toro.
I'm going to be a bit contradictory. I actually am in favor of the changes right now, or the proposed changes anyway.
Right.
Like it's been said, the good players already know that information. Even though they've died, they have a good idea of where they're being shot from. just from the pain indicators and whatnot. So I don't think it's necessarily that big of a deal for players on the higher end of the skill spectrum. And I think it's provides more feedback for lower skilled players, which is always nice, especially in the live server. The bad is that it's potentially really hurtful to sniping, especially when you're sitting back, behind enemy lines, denying a vehicle terminal or denying a sunder or something like that. That kind of scares me a bit, because I like doing that, and it's going to frustrate me a bit if that.
Yeah, it'll shorten your lifespan. Essentially, is what's going to happen. And unless you treat it like a competitive environment where Mustarde is saying you keep moving, but at the same time, the more you move, the more visible you are.
And in a competitive environment, there's only so many places that you can go to and still have a shot at the enemy. Like maybe 2 or 3 per location, because it's not like on live where you have people just standing out in the open, standing still.
Right.
Everyone's behind cover, moving in these gigantic medic balls, and you have very short amount of time to actually take your shots in a competitive setting.
Yeah, let's actually talk about that. What's your ideal situation in a competitive environment? Like, what's Toro's fucking like creme de la creme, ideal situation in a competitive environment?
There's 2 actually that I really enjoy. It's SME Munitions Court, for example. You can sit on top of one of the towers and deny deny access everything. Because everyone's taking cover directly in front of them, and they're not looking up. They're not covering from the top of the tower, and you can deny all 3 or 4 ramps that span those 2 towers.
There's a lot of ramps. There's 3 ramps. 3 ramps. The middle, the 2 top ones, and the middle one, I believe.
Yeah. So, and obviously any open field push is just heaven for a sniper. There's no cover, and they just have to run straight at you. Easy kills. And the other situation is actually in the Future Crew versus I&I Elite scrim, where they were sitting on that top balcony there.
Yeah, the tech plant.
Yeah, and just throwing down underbarrels like left, right, and center, and they were strafing back and forth, but I mean they weren't in cover. Their heads were completely exposed. And granted, I didn't get much of a chance to make an impact on the fight, but I was killing every couple of seconds. I was taking down one of the guys with an underbarrel.
Right, and it's actually when you were talking about the way you work with sniper rifles, like I was thinking of an ideal situation in competition. And maybe one of the ideal situations that I thought of, but I don't have a lot of experience, is where your infantry is pushing in front of you. So to get to you, they either have to snipe you or push through your infantry, which obviously underbarrels kind of bypass that. But if you had the pressure going onto your heavies and your medics, then you'd be pretty free to do what you want. So let's talk about Mustarde's ideal situation in a competitive environment.
Instead of a specific map, I would say my ideal situation is where there's a choke point of some sort, where you have 2 sides struggling over an objective, because that is where you'll find players kind of looking forward and not looking around them.
Okay.
And in those situations, it doesn't matter which weapon you have. It could be your pistol and knife, for all I care, or it could be your sniper rifle or SMG scout rifle. If people are not focused on you, then you can kill almost all of them. Maybe not. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but you can kill quite a few of them, and you can pull them away from your allies and have them focus on you. And so I think, I have a video on my YouTube channel where we were fighting Sturm Grenadier at Terran BL4 crash site in a scrimmage environment on the test server, and they were coming out of the spawn room, and they were all kind of huddled up behind a building trying to break through and get to Charlie Point. And I basically walked right off to the side. I threw a grenade, and I pulled out my SR7, and every shot was a kill because they're all weakened from the grenade. And I took out 7 or 8 of them. It was almost their whole squad, their whole push, just because they weren't paying attention. So those types of situations are the ones you want to identify with recon darts and capitalize on. You could do the same thing with any of the weapons we have. It's just a matter of kind of flanking, sticking to the principles of flanking and kind of knowing where your enemy is at.
Okay, sPWNish, what's your ideal situation? I know yours is going to be a little different because you're the SMG guy, so let's hear it.
Mine is going to be completely opposite. My ideal situation is actually having an engineer that will put ammo down in the right spot at the right times. Keeping their ammo pack up is the most important thing. They have cooldowns, they have whatever, I don't know, I don't play a lot of NG, I don't know the ammo pack rules, but they have to be put up every so often, I know that. So an NG that keeps it up, let's say on point, allows me to put my radar darts up. It allows us to establish control of the point. It allows us to make kills. It allows allows us to make frags on the other team, which makes them get frustrated and maybe leave their flanks open, go on a little bit of a tilt on their end, and then I could come in and I could do my thing. I could go and get my frags. So that's my ultimate philosophy and dream for an infiltrator.
Okay, now that we talked about the good, let's talk about the bad. What in your opinion is like maybe the thing holding the infiltrator back from what it could be? Or I'll phrase it like this: what is the hardest thing to learn for a new player that wants to play infiltrator? You could answer one or the other or both. Let's go with Spanish.
I'm more than happy to answer both. The hardest thing to learn is straight up situational awareness. Nothing comes easily with situational awareness. You just have to learn it. It's something that you have to put in the time and in the effort. I've been playing FPS games for over 13 years now, so I just kind of know what most people are going to be doing, where they're going to be on a map. And I mean, we all have several hundred hours in PlanetSide 2, everybody in this stream. So we know
a little more than that.
General people. Yeah, I know. I'm just saying for myself because I only have like 500, but we have this ideology of where people are going to be, what part they're going to be standing at, and just know when you're going to get pushed, when grenades are coming, anything along those lines that'll help you be survivable is the most important thing, because you have such low health. Knowing I can't shoot that guy, I have to run away. Knowing I should throw a grenade here, I need radar darts, I need ammo, all this stuff. That's the toughest part of the infiltrator, and it's why a lot of infiltrators fail. Good infiltrators keep radar darts up all the time. Great infiltrators do it while they're killing people and not being killed, obviously. And
all right, so Mustarde, it was a two-parter. I don't know if you caught it. Basically, what's the bad about the infiltrator, and what's the hardest thing for a new one to learn?
The bad is straight up the fragging ability. You're not gonna win 1v1s versus heavy straight up. You're never gonna run around a corner, see a heavy, and you're looking at each other, and you're never going to win that fight. It's just not gonna happen.
Yeah, that's what happens to me as a newbie infiltrator. I do that all the time because I'm used to attacking heavies from just being a heavy.
It's never ever going to happen. I mean, and I say that as nicely as I can, especially against a good heavy. It's just not happening. Your only chance is to flank. That's it. You have to rely on your flanks, and good teams will know that's coming.
Okay, Mustarde, the same two questions.
Right. I think, in terms of the bad for infiltrator, and this might be a little bit more for live server, but there's not enough to do. We can hack turrets, which can be very powerful, but even then, usually it's pretty easy to get blown up inside one. You can hack out a sunder for your team, or you can get what I do with my guys is we'll get a squad of infiltrators to pull vehicles from behind enemy lines and have a little ninja tank column or something. But as far as what there actually is to do in a base, it's pretty limited. And like Spanish was saying, you'll never win a 1v1. So that's kind of, at least if they're looking right at you, 80% of the time you're not going to win it. And that translates into competitive play as well. I think it's very easy to fail at what you're trying to do against good players with good communications who are just as situationally aware as you are. And I guess one other kind of thing that I don't like about the infiltrator right now is that I think Sony has added more ways to find out where an infiltrator is at than it was at release. We're visible on Recon Dart. You can actually see when we've shot Recon Darts. Those little things haven't always been in the game to the point now where it's trivial to find an infiltrator. And I hunt them down, all the time. They're actually really easy to find. So, I think those are some of the negatives about just the class in general. What was the second part of that question?
What's the hardest thing to learn for a new infiltrator? For somebody that wants to be an infiltrator?
I think the hardest thing to learn, I'm tempted to go with Spanish's answer of situational awareness because it is really important and hard to learn. But I think also it's knowing your limits, whether it's with the SMG, because you can easily overextend and get one kill and die instead of killing a whole squad of guys. And with your sniper rifles, it's kind of a matter of knowing your own skill limits so that you don't pick bad engagements or you don't try to go to a part of the map where you'll get a few shots off and then someone will kill you. So
Right.
you have to know your limits. Holding back and being patient is hard in a first-person shooter, and the Infiltrator is all about patience.
Now, do you think that the Infiltrator rewards good situational awareness more than any other infantry class, or do you think it's on par with them?
I mean, I made the implication one time to someone that it rewards it more, and I still think it does, but you could argue, a heavy assault with great situational awareness will be just as powerful, I suppose. But I think that the fact that we have recon darts, we can kind of see the mini map, we can plan our route of attack. If you can do all those things in a split second, you will have the upper hand, and you can always control the fights you're in. Almost always, There's very few times where I'm in a building and I don't know that I'm about to be overrun and I bail out the window or something. So controlling the engagement, I think, gives us the upper hand and makes it, I think, situational awareness in general more valuable for the Infiltrator.
Okay, Toro, the same questions?
Primarily bad for the Infiltrator. I'd have to go with base design. Not every base, but a lot of bases. Specifically, a lot of the single point bases on Esamir, the new Esamir, and even on Hassan. They're very hard to do anything in. You get one max looking at each entrance into a point, and you're done. You can't push in. You can't get picks. You're just sitting on the outskirts, like trying to get a single kill, and then they just get revived half a second later. You throw in an imp grade, run in, and then get a kill, and then you die. Like it's very hard to do anything as an Infiltrator on a single point base. It's obviously depends a bit on team size, because I think 12v12 you have a lot more room to breathe,
right,
as opposed to 24v24.
Mm-hmm.
But you throw 24 people inside a point, and you as an Infiltrator are not going to do a whole hell of a lot attacking into that point. For the hard to learn, I'd have to agree with everybody else here, and situational awareness is definitely the most important skill, and the hardest one to learn as a sniper specifically. You need to pay so much attention to the sounds and the tells around you, and that's hard to do when you're focused in trying to figure out how much you need to lead this guy and compensate for bullet drop, or how much farm you're getting on people standing still with their phoenixes or something like that, and somebody decloaks behind you and kills you in half a second, or an ESF comes out of nowhere. It's very difficult to focus in on sniping, as well as making sure you're just not going to die in about half a second to somebody who sneaks up behind you.
Okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about.
I actually have something to add.
Oh, go ahead.
Coming from a medic background, an NG background, a heavy background, something that I always said while playing is, especially while pubbing, is there will be an Infiltrator just running straight across, even at me, cloaked, and I'm sitting there like, I can see you clear as day. And when I go to Infiltrator, I think, nobody can see me. I am invisible, I am the night, I am dark, nobody can see anything, and I'm just running around straight. So for new Infiltrators, this is something that I learned within the first couple of days, and hopefully I can kind of alleviate that process for you guys. Don't just run straight, especially while cloaked. Alter your pattern. It's very tough for the human eye to pick up if somebody is going to, serpentine around while cloaked. Next thing is, if you are going somewhere, and don't go to the logical place. Even while you're cloaked, if you try to go out a door that everybody knows you're trying to escape out of, everybody's just going to lay fire down at that door, and you're dead. As soon as you reach that door, you're dead. They don't have to see you. So be very thoughtful of where you're moving and how you're moving while you're cloaked as well.
Okay, you actually answered my question without me asking it, which is pretty good. I was going to ask, what do you guys recommend to live server players that are trying to get maybe on your level as infiltrators? Like, what is, and Spanish kindly answered it with a little forethought. Well, what about you, Mustard? What are your ideas on that?
I like the answer of being unpredictable in your movement patterns, because people will lose line of sight with you very easily if you're moving around and using cover and being unpredictable. As far as sniping goes, you have to pick one of the bolt-action rifles, pick the same optics for it, and use it consistently so you can develop the muscle memory for that bullet drop. And if you're going to use a suppressor, always use it until you're very good at it. If you're not, then never do it until you're very good. Because you have to really learn the weapons so that you can intuitively fire them, adjusting for lead time and bullet drop and everything at different ranges. You just have to do it a lot. At least for me, And again, I didn't actually come from a big FPS background, so it took me a while before I actually became someone who was known for sniping. And I would say those are the main things for a new player trying to kind of up their game, is being consistent and being unpredictable at the same time.
Okay. Toro?
Well, especially when it comes to close quarters cloaking, all it takes is one person to shoot you once, and your cloak flickers, and then everyone sees you. And
you're revealed.
Yeah, it's so frustrating at times, because I've done it to I don't know how many infiltrators where it's dark at like on an air pad or something, and it's really hard to see a cloak, but I just see them flicker for a second. I shoot them once, and then the rest of my team kills them. And it's not something that you can necessarily avoid. Just be cognizant of it as you do your cloaking. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is right now.
Okay, let's wrap it up here as we're closing in on about an hour to the show. Let's close with closing thoughts. Toro, it could be anything. Maybe a question I didn't ask. Any of your thoughts about Infiltrator, live, competitive, whatever. So it's closing thoughts.
That'd be more a question. Is what do you guys think it would take, pushing my sniper agenda again, for sniper infiltrators to become effective in competitive play?
Well, I think it'll happen. I think community clash, especially with the 24s not being on the Nexus. I mean, if you're talking Nexus, I'd say you're kind of screwed because of the way the bases are designed. They're very tight. There's a lot of cover between angles. I mean, you're talking about Spanish can correct me. What, at most 50 meters between points on the Nexus? It's really the bases are very tight infantry bases. They're designed for pushes, so I think it'd be very difficult unless you're on certain bases like Bitter Gorge, where all 3 points on the outside. But the community clash, I think it'll be your time to shine. I honestly believe, because you're not going to be stuck at one base. There's a lot of open cover. The initial base is going to be Howling Pass, so I think it'll be really well done, especially with the sniper rifle changes now in cloaking and not the cloaking but the suppressor. So I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens. I mean, for Melmoji maybe not so much, but for community clash, yeah. I don't know if you guys want to answer that, Spanish or Mustarde too. Like, what will it take for snipers to have their day in the sun?
For sniper specifically, large open spaces. For me to play sniper, a cold day in hell. To put it frankly, I am just an awful sniper. I never want to bring myself into a competition aspect where I'm expected to shoot well and use a sniper rifle. As for pubbing, I'll pick it up. I'll just kill people with it, especially if I'm not using my character.
Well, I think the hardest thing about sniper rifle, it's like it's not like other guns, right? Where you run into a room, you point and shoot. Sniper rifle, like you guys are pointing out, you have to be aware of everything. I mean, if you even hear an ESF, you can't shoot. If there's infiltrators out there roaming, you have to be very aware of that. The sniper rifle isn't about pointing and shooting. It's about knowing everything that's happening around you and everything that's happening around your target, right? So it's probably one of the harder weapons to use, not so much for the range, but because of how much situational awareness it requires from the player. But let's let Mustarde answer the question.
Yeah, I was going to say, this might sound a little funny, but I don't really think sniping in general needs a day in the sun when it comes to competitive play. I kind of like how the bases are designed, and I think the infiltrator has a lot of different tools at their disposal to be effective, and so you just have to interpret the map, and decide if you should be pulling out a sniper rifle or an SMG or the semi-auto rifles. I think there's a role for each of them, and with this coming patch, I think Sony is giving us a little bit more definition on when to use some of these rifles by making them more useful. So, but I don't think in particular that you want snipers to have a day in the sun, so to speak, because competitive play is not 48 snipers on 48 snipers, or even just, even if you had, I think in like 48 versus 48, you only, like I said, need maybe 1 or 2 snipers in your mix.
Right.
So at most, I think they're kind of limited, but that's okay. But the class itself is very diverse, and I kind of wrote about this not too long ago, where if you have a loadout for every engagement range, there is not a single fight that you can't be an impact on. And so it's all about interpreting what's around you and pulling the right kit.
Right. I think and Toro, correct me if I'm wrong though, but what you meant about that is that you want teams to say, okay, I want a sniper right now. And I think maybe that's what you were pointing at. It's not so much infiltrator, but it's like saying, I want a sniper because that's going to be more useful than anything else you could do. And I think it's very difficult with the way, I mean, we've talked about the points, right? If you're playing against a competitive team, 1, they'll know where you're at right away. 2, the maps aren't necessarily designed for sniping. And then 3, there's so much going on in the map, both in live and competitive play, that it's very difficult to set up properly. And so, like Mustarde was saying, you pick your engagement, you pick your ranges, but I would really like to see snipers at least say, like, if I'm leading a squad, I want a sniper. You know what I mean? Because it's one of those interesting. I think it harkens back to the initial days of what Call of Duty. There's always been a sniper class in all FPSs, and unfortunately, PlanetSide 2 is like maybe the most dynamic FPS game that's ever been released because there is so much on the table. But let's continue with closing thoughts. Mustarde?
Closing thoughts, I would say with the coming patch, a lot of the problems I had with the class are being addressed. Not all of them, but many. I had a huge problem with how nanoweave was affecting live performance. And I know we didn't get into nanoweave too much, but I actually thought it was okay in its job against small arms fire. But when it comes to the bolt action rifles, I was getting denied, when I shoot someone in the head from very close ranges, and it became a bigger and bigger problem as more people invested in it. And it only required like rank 2 in order to block a headshot once it hit that fall off distance. I was a little surprised that Sony took the route they did. But as far as nerfing nanoweave,
right,
in addition to buffing the sniper rifles a little bit. But that's, I think right now though, with this coming patch, there's going to be finally a level playing field. If you can make the shot, you'll perform. And if not, then it'll be just like always, where if you miss shots, you'll die.
Yeah.
And getting rid of the scope sway is probably my favorite change for the close range rifles. It makes them a lot more viable.
Now I'm pretty ignorant about this. What ranges are you talking about? What magnification for the remove scope sway?
So the SAR 42 for the TR, it's the Ghost, or the SASR for the NC. It's the iron sight rifle. It comes as an iron sight and goes up to 4x. And it has like I think a 1x, a 2x, 2 different 3.4 times, and then a 4x scope. I could be wrong on that, but it's 1 through 4.
That patch was a while ago, wasn't it? Where they removed they basically, I think they removed scope sway from those scopes and then added scope sway to the RNV all in the same patch, didn't they?
No, the only thing they did was they added scope sway to a 6x scope, which only applied for the semi-auto scout rifle. The semi-auto scout rifles for infiltrators.
Right.
And I know we're kind of getting into the weeds here, but it used to be that they had no scope sway at all, and also for battle rifles. And they could fit up to a 6x scope, and they added scope sway to the 6x scopes for battle rifles and the semi-auto scout rifles.
Okay. Now, do you think with the nanoweave changes that it's going to be a more satisfying? You're going to have like a more satisfying gameplay experience, especially with the changes.
I do. I think it's going to be a overall just it'll be, the rifles will perform more reliably, and I think it'll make it'll basically reward you for landing the headshot. Which, whatever range you're at, I think if you hit someone with a sniper rifle that you have to rechamber each round and unscope, then if you manage to hit him in the head, you should get the kill.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I was happy when they announced the one hill kill changes anyway.
You know, a lot of people like to kind of hate on the role of snipers in the game, but or they just don't like being killed by, you know.
I think it's mostly they don't like being killed by snipers. I know I don't.
Yeah, and I
all you hear is that, and that's it. You see the death screen.
You know, I've got so many hate tells. I know Toro has a whole page full of hate tells. We all get a lot of hate tells that, but I do think it's a valuable part of such a big game with these big maps and huge battles that you have something that can function at long range. So I do think that it's a good change. And so my closing thoughts are just that I think the Infiltrator is heading in a good place combat-wise, and I still want to see more for stealth mechanics, which we didn't talk about much, and more for base interaction. I want more stuff to do in bases. I don't just want to farm kills all day. I want to kind of help push the fight and break up the big Zergy stalemates.
I think they're leading to that way. Like sPWNish talked about Frere, where the A spawn. I don't know if you guys have tried it yet, but you capture A, you get a forward spawn, and I think it allows for more flanking and aggressive tactics by maybe 2 or 3 people. I mean, it might be light assaults, it might be infiltrators, and I think S3 realizes that, and so they're changing the basis from kind of like the static. You got 4 gens to actually more objectives, more compelling objectives, and I think it's a good thing. But let's go with sPWNish as far as closing thoughts.
I'm just going to touch on that, what you said right there. It fixes the game for new players. If you create a new character that's not BR100 or something along those lines, it is impossible to actually be a useful part of a fight. You can't pull your AMS Sunday to get people there. You can't get your spawn there. You don't have a spawn beacon. You can't get there with the squad. You don't have any weapon unlocks. You don't have any armor. You don't have shields. You have like such a limited way of getting around the map. You don't have
basically you don't have shit, and you have no idea how to get it.
You don't have anything, and this will kind of guide you to like, okay, this is a 25 to 48 fight. I can spawn right there. I'm in the fight. I don't have to worry about how I get there, and I think it takes a lot of the transportation out of it. Whether like previously you'd have to pull a Mozzie or something, or a Reaver or Scythe. Let's just even that out to get to a base. In terms of infiltrators, my closing thought is. Any class in the game, competition-wise, you could fail at your job in any class, and people will be able to kind of fill in the gap. You'll be able to, stretch your defenses or your offense if you're attacking to have an engineer repair 2 maxes instead of 1 or whatever it may be. If you fail at your job as an infiltrator, everybody knows it. You're getting called out. You need to keep your radar darts up. So you're going to need to be able to handle the pressure of getting called out constantly. Or just...
And I know your squad leaders. They're not afraid to call you out either. I'm pretty familiar with Delta squad leads. Nope.
No. He's not afraid to call me out.
I play with Pony all the time. He's a good guy, but I know he's not afraid to call people out.
Definitely not. He'll do it in a very calm manner, though, so that's nice. Not having to be screamed at, just saying, "Hey, you're doing a bad job, fix it," and doing that.
All right.
So that's also very important. Be calm.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time too. I think I know, and it's mostly I don't know why he sticks out of my mind. It's VS21314. I know Toro knows him. He always sticks out of my mind because he's like one of those infils that's kind of like sPWNish. He's the SMG infil. And he just does not give any fucks. Like, he'll go out in the middle of a field with his SMG, take out 3 or 4 guys, disappear, take out 3 or 4 guys. I don't know how he does that. And that's the kind of thing you cannot do with any other class but, I think, Infil. And it just goes to show that when you reach that skill ceiling, and I think he's reached it, that you could be much more effective almost than any other class. Because you have heavies, sure, you could take out maxes, but with the Infil, I mean, you're denying movement. You're denying spawns. You know, people are respawning and staring at the respawn window. It's very frustrating. But I think there's a long way to go, and I'm really curious to see what they're going to pull out for the revamp. But that's it. Unless you guys have anything else to add, we're going to close it there.
Go ahead.
I personally would love to hear what the newer players have to say about the things that we're saying. If they have any questions, I'd love to hear them. So you can feel free to message me in game on the Waterson server. sPWNish is my name. Or you could hit me up on Twitter. I'm sure it's below my name, or below my...
No, it's actually it's on the title, but I'll add it to the YouTube video. I'm going to upload it to YouTube and then put it on Reddit.
I'll put it somewhere. It'll be somewhere around here. So feel free to send me a message, ask me questions, comments, whatever.
All right, Mustarde.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we're all pretty active on social media, so if you include that info, I'm always happy to talk to people or give advice. I do think Infiltrator is a little bit, it was underrated or underappreciated, and it was also underrepresented among kind of the top levels of play for a while, but then I think over time you've had guys like It's Murda and Toro, the guys on this channel, and there's a handful of other really notable infiltrators who are kind of showing what one person can do. That you're talking about with what's his name, VS21314.
Yes, it's something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I've looked at his profile before, and he's a wizard. And I've seen there's a few other people who are at that level. And I think that's kind of started to show the power of the class when done correctly.
Right.
So.
And I think the infiltrators, especially competitively, are in a very unique role because you typically only have one or two. I mean, heavies in a 24-man are a dime a dozen. You're going to have like 6, 7, 8 heavies, right? But infiltrators, you might have 2, 3, maybe 4, but that's pushing it. So what's required of that player is much more demanding than I think would be required of any other player, except maybe like a medic or something. But even medics can just play passively, sit behind the maxes, and just revive. Infiltrators, you have to be constantly pushing, getting intel, flanking, things like that. So actually, infiltrators are in a very unique role. And I think most infiltrators that you're going to see in competition will shine just because they're usually some of the better players, as far as situational awareness and things like that are. But yeah, we'll see.
They kind of have to shine, or else
they have to. Otherwise, yeah.
They also might be good for kind of the spectator side of competitive play if and when that really comes around. I think people would enjoy watching a really good infiltrator work his magic, and people could develop a bit of a fan base around that.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the new tools. I know I would definitely be following infils, especially the infils that are just in good spots. If you're on your tower or Spanish, just making pushes on the flanks. It's always really interesting because it's high risk, high reward for infils. And other classes, I mean, you could sit back on your resist shield, you could sit back on med kits, you could go back to the medic. But infil, you're pretty much on your own. Toro, any other last words?
No, not really. I think we've covered mostly everything I wanted to talk about today.
Okay, sounds good. And that's going to do it for this episode 3 of Attack on Auraxis. You can hit these guys up on the YouTube. It should be below in the stream or in the YouTube video if you guys want to follow them on Twitter. And also hit them up on their servers. The names are up in the overlay. Thanks for watching, and thanks guys for guesting on the show.
Thanks for having us.
That's it.
Yeah, thank you for having us.